The morning sun rose slowly over the distant hills, spreading soft golden light across the land. The village was quiet, wrapped in the gentle silence that came before a long and dangerous journey. Chief stood near the wooden gate, his tall figure casting a steady shadow across the ground. He was known for his strength, his calm thinking, and the way he protected his people without hesitation. But today, for the first time in many years, his heart was heavy. He looked at the road stretching ahead of him. It was long, lonely, and filled with danger from the wild creatures and raiders who ruled the empty lands. Still, he had no choice. His tribe was suffering. Their crops were dying from the cold wind. Their warriors were injured from recent battles, and far away beyond the great mountains lived the humans, a race his people rarely approached. But humans were known for helping those they called friends. They had weapons, medicine, and courage that could change the fate of the tribe. So Chief had decided that he would go alone and ask for help. At least that was what he believed until he heard soft footsteps behind him. When he turned, he saw Lyra, his wife, standing there with a travel pack over her shoulder and determination in her eyes. The early light made her face glow softly, and the breeze moved her dark hair gently behind her. "I am coming with you," she said. Her voice was calm, but knew her too well. Beneath her calmness lived a deep, quiet fire. Still, he was shocked. Lyra was gentle, kind-hearted, and more comfortable healing wounds or teaching children than walking into danger. He never expected her to join him on a mission across the wild borderlands. "Lyra, this journey is dangerous," he said, his voice slightly unsteady. "You should stay here where it is safe." But she stepped closer, her eyes firm. "If it is dangerous for you, then it is dangerous for our people. And if you must face danger, I will not let you face it alone." Her words pierced through him like an arrow made of warmth. He wanted to protest, to protect her, to make her stay behind the safe walls of the village. But he also knew the truth. Lyra was not someone who spoke without deep purpose. If she said she was coming, it meant her heart had already made the decision long ago. The village elders watched from a distance. Some whispered in worry, others in awe. The chief's wife joining the journey was something no one had expected. Children peeked from behind their mother's robes, eyes wide with curiosity. Looked at Lyra for a long moment. He saw the quiet strength beneath her softness, the determination behind her gentle voice, the love that made her step into danger for him. "Very well," he finally said. "We go together." A small smile touched Lyra's lips, but her eyes softened with something deeper. Relief, gratitude, and a secret emotion she had carried for years. They mounted their travel beasts side by side. The village gate opened slowly, creaking under its old wood. As they rode forward, the villagers bowed their heads, offering silent prayers for their safety. The road ahead stretched like a ribbon across the land. They passed the edge of the forest, where sunlight filtered through tall trees like falling gold. The wind hummed softly between the leaves. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence was not empty, it was filled with shared understanding. Kept glancing at Lyra. He wondered why she had chosen this moment to join him. Why now? Why leave the safety of the village? He sensed something in her eyes, something unspoken, something she carried deep within her heart. But he did not ask. He knew she would speak when the time was right. Lyra, on the other hand, watched the mountains in the far distance. Her heart beat with a quiet excitement mixed with fear. For years, she had held a secret hope, a hope she never dared to speak aloud, a hope connected to the humans beyond those mountains, a hope that this journey could change everything. As the sun rose higher, they rode deeper into the wildlands, two figures traveling together, husband and wife, chief and healer, warrior and dreamer. But neither knew that ahead of them, danger was watching. And even further ahead, a human captain waited, someone who would change their world forever. The road stretched ahead like a quiet river of dust, winding through empty plains and rolling hills. Chief and Lyra rode side by side, their travel beasts moving with slow and steady breaths. The morning wind was cool, carrying the distant cry of birds and the soft rustle of grass. For a long time they traveled without speaking, each lost in their own thoughts. But inside Lyra's heart, something heavy and long-kept was waiting to be told. She felt it pressing against her chest with every step of the journey. She had promised herself that she would confess it before they reached the human lands. She had waited years for this moment, and now, with every mile they passed, the truth pulled closer to her lips. Noticed her quietness. Lyra was soft-spoken, but she was never distant. Normally, she would hum small melodies or point out interesting plants along the road. But today, she kept her head slightly bowed, her hands gripping the reins more tightly than usual. When the sun reached its highest point, they stopped near a small clearing beside a stream. The water sparkled under the bright light, and tall trees sheltered them with cool shade. Helped Lyra down, and she sat near the edge of the stream, dipping her fingers in the cold water. He watched her for a moment, sensing the weight in her heart. "Lyra," he said gently, "something troubles you." Her fingers paused on the water's surface. For a moment she said nothing. She simply listened to the soft sounds, the trickling stream, the gentle winds, steady breathing. She closed her eyes, gathering courage. Finally she spoke. "There is something I have hidden from you for a very long time." He knelt beside her, concern growing in his chest. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." She lifted her eyes to his. They were filled with a mix of fear and hope. "All my life," she began quietly, "I have believed that our people cannot survive alone. I have believed that we need someone who sees the world differently, someone who fights not only with strength but with unity, someone human." His brows tightened. "Human, why?" Lyra pulled in a shaky breath. "Because humans protect. They stand together. I read the old records, stories of humans who crossed deserts for their friends, who fought impossible battles because they believed in loyalty. I have always admired that. I have always wished we could have someone like that beside us." Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. "Years ago, before we even married, I thought, someday our tribe might meet a human we could trust, a human who could stand with us. And when I married you, I hoped you would one day trust such a person too." Felt the confession sink deep into him, not because it hurt, but because it surprised him. Lyra, who always kept peace, who always stood by their people, had carried this hope alone for years. "You should have told me," he said softly, his voice full of gentleness. "I wanted to," she whispered, "but I feared you would think it was foolish. Humans keep to themselves, our people do not seek outsiders. I was afraid my dream would sound like a child's wish." Reached for her hand. "Lyra, nothing you believe is foolish. Your heart sees the world clearly, more clearly than mine sometimes." Her eyes glistened with emotion. She was not used to being this vulnerable, but his calm voice eased the storm inside her. "I joined this journey," she said, "not only because I fear for our people. I joined because this is the first chance we have, maybe the only chance to find a human who will stand with us. I wanted to be here to witness it, to help you trust." Looked out toward the distant mountains where human lands began, their shapes rising like silent guardians. For the first time, the journey felt different. He was no longer traveling only for help. He was traveling to understand something his wife had carried like a secret flame for years. Something hopeful, something powerful. "I cannot promise what we will find," said gently. "But I promise this, I will not ignore your wish. If a human stands before us with honor, I will see him with open eyes." Lyra's breath left her in a soft sigh, filled with relief. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her, holding her close in the quiet shade. In that peaceful moment, their hearts felt lighter, their fears felt smaller. And somewhere beyond the mountains, a human captain lived, a man who didn't know that destiny was already riding toward him. The mountains loomed ahead like silent giants, their peaks touching the clouds. The air grew colder as Chief and Lyra rode closer, the wind slicing through the valleys. The journey had grown harder with each step. Their travel beasts were tired and their supplies were low, but neither spoke of weakness. They knew the goal was within reach. Beyond these mountains, humans lived. Humans who could be their allies, humans who could change the fate of their tribe. After a long day of climbing rocky paths and crossing icy streams, they finally reached the human outpost. It was smaller than had imagined, built of stone and metal, standing strong against the harsh wilderness. Soldiers patrolled the walls with alert eyes, and the gates were guarded by humans holding strange weapons that glinted under the sun. Everything felt foreign, unfamiliar, yet full of promise. As they approached, a human stepped forward from the front of the gate. His armor was worn but polished, and his eyes were sharp, scanning Lyra with careful caution. He held himself with confidence, but also a kind of respect that made the aliens pause. "I am Captain Elias Ward," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "State your business here." Lifted his head high as a chief should, yet his words were respectful. "I am chief of the tribe. This is my wife, Lyra. We have come seeking a human ally. Our people are in danger, and we require aid." Elias blinked, clearly surprised by Lyra's presence. "Your wife came with you?" he asked, his eyes softening slightly. "This is unusual." Lyra stepped forward, her stance confident. "I am here because our journey requires more than one brave heart," she said. "I have long wished for a human ally, someone who fights not only for strength but for honor, someone who can help protect life, not destroy it." Felt a pang of pride. His wife spoke with courage and truth, without fear, even before a stranger. He realized then that Lyra's hope had carried them this far. Her wish, secret and long-held, was about to meet reality. Elias studied them both carefully. Humans were cautious by nature, especially when strangers arrived from unknown lands. But there was something in his posture, something in Lyra's eyes that made him pause. They were not ordinary travelers. They were warriors, yes, but also leaders, people whose hearts carried the weight of their people's lives. "Why should I trust you?" Elias asked, keeping his voice steady. "Humans do not often intervene in alien conflicts. Why now?" Lyra met his gaze directly. "Because we are not here to demand. We are here to share our struggle. Because our people are suffering, and I have always believed that humans protect those they call friends. We ask for trust, but we offer honor in return." Nodded. "If we are accepted, we will fight alongside you, not above you. Together we will stand." Elias studied them again. He could see the truth in their eyes, the weight of responsibility, the sincerity of purpose. This was no trick, no illusion, this was real. "Very well," he said finally, his voice steady. "You will be welcome here, but you must understand this land is not safe. Danger waits beyond these walls. You will need courage, not only strength." And Lyra exchanged a brief glance. Danger was expected. They had prepared for it, but now they were no longer alone. A human captain, standing firm, ready to fight beside them. As they entered the outpost, soldiers watched carefully but allowed them passage. Inside, they were given food, blankets, and warm water. Lyra's eyes softened as she touched the human-built walls, so different from their village, yet standing strong in the wilderness. That night, under the glow of lanterns, they shared stories. Lyra spoke of her tribe, of their struggles and dreams, spoke of the battles they had survived. And Elias, surprisingly, listened with patience and respect. He asked questions about their ways, their customs, their hopes, and slowly trust began to grow. But outside the walls, shadows moved. The wind carried a faint hum, a warning that danger was already approaching. The raiders, enemies of both humans and aliens, were aware of the chief's journey. They would not allow it to succeed. And tomorrow, the outpost would face a test unlike any it had seen before. Yet inside, felt something he had never felt before: hope. With Lyra by his side, and a human ally willing to stand with them, the impossible seemed possible. Lyra's quiet wish, spoken only in her heart for so long, was no longer a dream. It had found flesh, courage, and honor, and together they were ready to face whatever came next. The night grew darker, but their resolve burned brighter than any star above. Tomorrow, the real journey would begin. The night was unusually still, the air heavy with quiet tension. Lanterns flickered along the walls of the human outpost, casting long shadows across the stone floors. Inside, Lyra and Captain Elias sat together, planning their next steps. They spoke softly, voices careful not to disturb the calm night. But outside, the world was restless. Something was coming. His instincts, honed from years of battle, told him danger was near. He rose and walked to the top of the wall, his eyes scanning the dark horizon. The mountains stood tall against the moonlight, but something moved among their shadows, shapes that were too deliberate, too purposeful. "They are coming," he said quietly, without turning to look at Lyra or Elias. "Raiders, they have tracked us since we left our village." Lyra's hand went to the hilt of her dagger, but she did not panic. She had prepared herself for this moment, had imagined it countless times during the journey. Her heart raced, yet her mind was steady. Elias narrowed his eyes, the muscles in his jaw tightening. "How many?" he asked. "Too many to fight lightly," replied. "But together we can hold them. If we stand firm, the outpost will survive." The distant hum of engines grew louder. Shadows moved like a tide, crawling closer to the walls. People had always fought their enemies with courage, but humans fought differently. Elias barked sharp orders, rallying his soldiers with precision and calm. Every soldier moved with a purpose, every step calculated. Lyra stepped beside. "We must protect them as they protect us," she said. "We cannot fail, not now." He looked at her, admiration and love mingling with the rising tension. "Then we fight together," he said. The first wave of raiders struck with a terrifying roar. Machines hovered above the ground, red lights scanning the walls. Weapons fired in waves, sparks flying as they clashed against the human defenses. Leapt down from the wall, spear in hand, meeting the enemy head-on. His movements were swift, powerful, and precise. Every strike he made was calculated to protect both the humans and his people. Lyra's arrows flew through the night, each one finding its mark. She moved silently but with deadly accuracy, covering as he pushed the raiders back. Her heart pounded, but she did not falter. Every time she glanced at Elias, she saw the same calm determination reflected in his eyes. The human was no ordinary warrior. He fought with strategy, with courage, and with a willingness to protect those who could not protect themselves. Elias fired his weapon steadily, never missing a beat. He moved alongside, and Lyra, shielding soldiers, throwing himself into the path of danger without hesitation. Watched him once, and something deep inside stirred respect, trust, and the first spark of friendship. Here was a human who stood for something greater than himself. The battle raged through the night. Explosions shook the ground, screams echoed through the outpost, and yet Elias, side by side, held the line. Lyra moved between them, her presence a constant force of precision and courage. At one point, a massive raider machine charged straight toward Lyra. Without thinking, Elias threw himself in front of her, deflecting the attack with his shield. Rushed to their side, spear striking down two attackers that had slipped past the defenses. The commander appeared at the edge of the battlefield, his armor glowing with red energy. His presence made the air heavier, colder, filled with menace. His jaw tightened. The commander was powerful, ruthless, and experienced, but he had not counted on the strength of three hearts beating as one, alien, human, and a warrior whose hope had guided them both. Lyra stepped forward, steady and fearless, even as the commander raised his weapon. "We do not fight alone," she shouted. "Humans protect those they call friends, and today we are friends." The words struck deeply. They were true, they were standing together, and no enemy could break that bond. The first battle was only the beginning. Sparks flew, weapons clashed, and the night echoed with courage. Together they were stronger than any one of them alone, and for the first time felt something he had never felt before on the battlefield: hope. Hope that humans and aliens could fight as one. Hope that Lyra's secret wish was finally becoming reality. The night sky burned red with the fires of the human outpost. Smoke curled into the air, carrying the smell of metal and burned wood. Lyra and Captain Elias moved through the chaos like three stars aligned in a dark sky. Every strike they made was purposeful, every action calculated. The raiders were relentless, but so were they. They fought not only to survive, but to protect the fragile bond that had begun to grow between them. Led the charge from the front, his spear glinting under the light of burning buildings. His movements were powerful, precise, and controlled. He struck down two raiders with one swing, then pivoted to block a strike aimed at Lyra. She was moving with the grace of a dancer, her arrows flying fast and true, finding their marks in the enemy's weak points. Her presence was calm but deadly, a perfect complement to strength and Elias' tactical mind. Elias moved like a shadow through the battlefield, his weapon singing as he defended his companions. At one point, he threw himself between Lyra and a raider who had broken through the line. The human took a direct hit to his armor but remained standing, shield raised, protecting her. His chest tightened at the sight. He realized then that trust was not something that could be demanded, it had to be earned. And Elias had earned it with his actions. The raiders pressed harder. Their machines roared, their weapons fired with deadly precision, but the three warriors refused to falter. Together they moved as one, blocked the attacks that came at Elias. Lyra covered both of them from a distance, and Elias, in turn, protected their flanks, ensuring that no enemy could strike them from behind. Their coordination was instinctive, built from the shared need to survive. During a lull in the fighting, caught sight of the commander, standing apart on a ridge glowing red with deadly energy. His gaze swept the battlefield, calculating and cruel. His jaw tightened. He knew the final confrontation would come soon, and he also knew that Lyra and Elias were ready to face it with him. "Stay close," said, his voice steady but low. "We end this together." Lyra nodded, her eyes focused. "I will not let him hurt you," she whispered. Her hands tightened around her bow, her body coiled like a spring ready to release deadly force. Elias glanced at them both. "We are stronger together," he said, a rare smile appearing on his face even in the middle of battle. "I've never fought with aliens before, but you inspire me." Felt something he had never felt before, a bond forming not out of duty, but out of respect, admiration, and shared courage. Lyra's secret wish, the hope she had carried for years, was now alive in the battlefield, glowing brighter than any fire. The raiders pressed closer, but their attacks began to falter. Spear found gaps in their formation. Lyra's arrows struck with uncanny precision. Elias' weapon cut through their ranks. Together they were unstoppable. Soldiers and warriors on both sides of the alliance began to notice the strength of their unity. Humans and aliens fighting side by side inspired courage in everyone around them. Then a raider machine lunged toward Lyra, its claws sharp and deadly. Without hesitation, Elias stepped in, deflecting the machine with his shield and taking the brunt of its force. Sparks flew, and he staggered but did not fall, and Lyra rushed to his side, striking down the attackers that had come with it. Grabbed Elias' arm. "You trusted me," he said. "You protected my wife." Elias shook his head with a grim smile. "You all trusted me first, that's why I stood." At that moment, the first walls between alien and human began to crumble. Trust had been earned, not with words but with action. Each risk taken, each life protected, each attack blocked had built a bridge stronger than any oath. Lyra lowered her bow for a brief second, looking at both men. Her heart swelled. This was what she had dreamed of, the impossible alliance, the meeting of courage and honor, the hope she had held alone for so many years. As the battle raged on, one thing became clear. The raiders were strong, but they were fighting against more than just weapons. They were fighting against unity, trust, and hope, things far stronger than brute force. And Lyra and Elias had plenty of both. The commander stood tall on the ridge, his red armor glowing like molten fire. His presence cast a shadow over the battlefield, and the remaining raiders hesitated, glancing at him for direction. He had waited for this moment, the chance to crush the humans and aliens together before they could form a lasting alliance. He stepped forward, raising his weapon high, and a wave of energy surged toward the outpost. Tightened his grip on his spear. He moved toward the commander with determination, every muscle ready for the final strike. Beside him, Elias prepared his weapon, alert and steady, eyes never leaving the enemy. But then Lyra stepped forward. "Wait," she said, her voice clear, carrying over the roar of the battle. Both and Elias paused, watching her. "I must face him." Lyra shouted, alarmed. "It's too dangerous." "I have to," she said, her voice trembling only slightly. "I cannot let this moment pass. I cannot let him destroy what we have built tonight." Elias glanced at, then nodded. "She is right," he said. "Sometimes courage is more than strength. Sometimes it is standing when all others would hesitate." Lyra's heart pounded, but she felt the steady beat of hope alongside it. She had dreamed of this moment for years, imagining what it would feel like to face a threat like this with humans and her husband beside her. Now it was real, and she was ready. She moved forward, her steps slow but deliberate. The raiders fell silent as they watched her, sensing the strange power of determination in her presence. She raised her bow, pulling the string taut, and aimed directly at the commander's weak point, a small gap in the glowing armor that only careful observation could reveal. "You think you can defeat us?" the commander sneered. "You are just a woman, weak, small, unimportant." Lyra's eyes met his, and she did not flinch. "I am not alone," she said. "Humans protect those they call friends, aliens protect their own, and today we are all friends." Her arrow sang through the air. It struck the commander's weak point. Sparks erupted as the armor cracked, and he roared in anger, swinging his weapon toward her. And Elias moved at the same moment, blocking the attack with his spear, and Elias firing twice more at the commander's armor. The combined force of their strikes sent him staggering back, unbalanced for the first time in the battle. Lyra took a deep breath and released another arrow. This one struck true, piercing the glowing armor and hitting the commander directly in his chest. The enemy screamed, stumbling backward before collapsing into the dirt, defeated at last. The remaining raiders, seeing their leader fall, panicked. Machines sputtered and sparks flew as they fled into the darkness, disappearing over the hills. The battlefield fell silent except for the crackling of fires and the soft wind moving through the ruins. Lyra lowered her bow and exhaled, her body trembling with the release of tension and fear, stepped beside her, placing his hand on her shoulder. "You were brave," he said, "more than I ever imagined." She looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears. "I had to," she whispered. "I wanted to show all of us that courage is not only in warriors or chiefs, it is in those who hope, who believe, and who fight for what is right." Elias approached, lowering his weapon. He gave her a rare, warm smile. "You fought like a true warrior," he said, "and you reminded us all why we fight together. Without you, we might not have survived." Felt a swell of pride for his wife. She had stepped into danger alone, not recklessly, but with wisdom, courage, and a clear heart. In that moment, he understood the depth of her long-held wish to have a human ally, to see trust built between species, to fight alongside someone who could inspire hope, and she had made it real. The three stood together, side by side, breathing in the cool night air. Smoke rose into the sky, but the fire inside them, the fire of trust, hope, and unity, burned brighter. They were more than chief, wife, and captain. They were a new force, an alliance born from courage and belief. Lyra's eyes swept across the battlefield, seeing both humans and aliens helping each other, tending the wounded, rebuilding the walls. She felt tears fill her eyes again, not of fear, not of sorrow, but of relief and hope. Her secret wish had not only survived, but flourished. Took her hand gently. "You brought more than courage tonight," he said. "You brought trust. You showed us the path to a future we never imagined." Lyra squeezed his hand, smiling through her exhaustion. "And this is only the beginning," she said softly. "Together we can change everything." The first light of dawn touched the battlefield, painting the smoke and fire with soft gold. The war was over for now. But the journey of alliance, hope, and friendship was just beginning. The first light of morning spread slowly across the battlefield, turning the smoke and ruins into shades of gold and silver. The raiders had fled, their machines smoking and broken. The human outpost stood battered but unbroken. And amidst the wreckage, three figures stood together: Chief, his wife Lyra, and Captain Elias. The silence of victory was gentle but heavy. Soldiers and villagers moved carefully among the wounded, helping where they could. Lyra watched them, her chest rising and falling with quiet relief. For years, she had hoped for this, a chance to see humans and her people fight as one, to prove that alliances could be built across worlds. And now it was real. Stood beside her, his spear resting against his shoulder, eyes scanning the horizon. For the first time in many years, he felt a weight lifted from his heart. Their people had survived, not through fear or isolation, but through courage and trust. And that trust had been earned not only between humans and aliens, but between them personally. "Captain Elias," said, his voice steady, "today you did more than fight. You protected life that was not your own. You stood with us when the odds were against us. For that I am grateful." Elias shook his head, giving a small, humble smile. "It was not just me, it was all of us. Humans fight for friends, and now I am honored to call you ours." Lyra stepped forward, placing a hand gently on his arm. "Do you see?" she asked softly, tears glimmering in her eyes. "This is why I wished for a human ally. This is why I hoped for trust between our worlds. Look at what we have built together." The chief's eyes softened as he turned to look at her. For a long moment they simply stood, taking in the scene. humans and aliens tending to the wounded, rebuilding walls, speaking words of comfort to each other. The bond was fragile but real. It had been forged in fire, trust, and courage. Knelt beside a fallen raider, examining the destruction, and then rose again. "We have won today," he said, "but the journey is not over. Our people still need protection, and now we have allies who will stand with us in the days to come." Lyra smiled, a soft, proud smile. "And the best part is we did not only survive, we proved that hope can be stronger than fear, that courage can be stronger than hate, that unity can create a future worth fighting for." Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your people fought well," he said. "And your wife, she reminded me why courage is never measured by size or strength alone. She fought with heart, she fought with hope." Looked at Lyra, seeing the quiet flame of determination in her eyes, the same flame that had guided them through mountains, rivers, and a night filled with enemies. "You were right, my heart," he said softly. "Your wish, your hope, it has changed everything." Lyra leaned into him, letting herself rest after the night of terror and triumph. "And this is only the beginning," she whispered. "Together, humans and aliens, we can face whatever comes next." The sun rose fully, bathing the outpost and the surrounding land in warm, golden light. The battlefield no longer seemed like a place of fear and chaos. Instead, it was a symbol of courage, of trust, of friendship, and of a new future. Children from the human outpost, curious and wide-eyed, began to emerge from the shelters, watching the three warriors. They pointed and whispered to each other, witnessing an example of hope in action. Lyra bent down, smiling at them, knowing that the example they had set tonight would inspire generations to come. And Elias discussed plans to rebuild stronger alliances, not just for survival, but for a future where humans and aliens could truly stand together. Lyra listened quietly, proud and full of emotion. Her long-held wish, the one she had carried in secret for years, had not only come true but had changed the hearts of those around her. As they prepared to journey back to his village, the three of them walked side by side. No longer was it a chief, a wife, and a human captain simply traveling together. They were symbols of hope, of unity, of the strength that could exist when worlds came together for a greater cause. Reached for Lyra's hand, holding it firmly. "Thank you," he said, "not just for your courage, but for your vision, for your hope, for reminding me that trust can build bridges even across worlds." She squeezed his hand, smiling through tears. "And thank you," she whispered, "for believing even when it was hard, for standing with me, and for taking the first step toward a future I always dreamed of." Elias looked at both of them, a small, proud smile on his face. "Then let us ride home," he said, "together as allies, together as friends." And so, as the morning sun bathed the land in golden light, they set forth, chief, wife, and human captain, ready to face a new day, a new journey, and a new future. A future built on courage, trust, and the unbreakable bond between worlds. The dawn of hope had come, and it would never fade.